Hello and welcome to another Amati Insights call. As we know, we do this every 2 weeks. We pick a subject that's topical, it's interesting to us, where we've done a lot of research, where we see quite a lot of investment implications. But of course, this is not a recommendation to buy stock or fund, so please seek do your own research, seek financial advice where necessary. The subject today is notes from Hannover Messe. That's, I think, is the largest global industrial technology event, certainly one of the largest. And those of you who follow the fund know that we love industry trade shows. It's a great place to see our companies in their natural habitat, where they speak to engineers and salespeople when they talk to their peers, they present their best products and their thought leadership, and being a fly on the wall in this places, which tend to be very large industrial halls and pretty obscure locations. Is definitely an important source of our informational advantage. So with that, the latest one is Hannover Messe, and Graeme is just back from it. So Graeme, what's been interesting there?
Yeah, it was, as always, a fascinating event. There's always so much to learn and to see at these things. This one in Hanover I go to for 2 days, and frankly, I could stay there for 4 days because there's so much to see. It's exhausting, but totally fascinating. In fact, it's become so large now that this year they actually have a digital map showing you your live location and relative to all the halls, so you can find your way around, and it's very useful. There was also, unusually this year, more of a focus on the center stage building, which had a kind of continuous stream of talks and presentations and discussions about a huge variety of different industrial technologies and subjects. And understandably, this year there was much more of a focus on the role of the industrialization of the defense industry in Europe, and particularly the kind of whole focus on European sovereignty. And there was some quite senior political industrial figures there.
Yeah, that's a big topic for us. Well, actually, 2 weeks ago we did an update of our views on Europe, global and defense technology. So if you're interested in this area, please have a look at the insights from 2 weeks ago. But in terms of this event, what are the new innovation areas that really caught your eye?
Yeah, well, there are a number of issues to dig into, but the most obvious one, I guess, kind of in-your-face topic as you walk around, is robotics. And as we go to these things every year, we can sort of track how the technologies are developing and the use cases are changing. This time last year, there were an enormous amount of robot arms doing various, complex tasks and picking and handling. And there were some quadruped robots walking around. But this year, there was an explosion, not only in the number of different quadrupeds, but also very significantly the number of humanoid robots. So as you walk around, you realize how clearly China dominates that market. And they had an array of very sophisticated and relatively inexpensive machines, certainly relative to the US options. But interestingly, talking to the engineers on the stands, the consensus feeling was really that the bipedal robots that were wandering around are a bit of a gimmick, and still not an optimal solution for most industrial purposes. Typically in a factory, the ground is very level, and if you use wheels, then you tend to get much longer battery life. They're a much more stable platform. So you see these things that are a bit like a centaur, a kind of half a human coming out of a bigger platform, and with two manipulative arms, and it makes sense. If you think about a two-legged robot is using a lot of energy to balance, whereas the wheeled ones are not doing that, and they're much smoother.
And that's the reason we haven't yet invested in anything in humanoid robotic space. And we remember when autonomous mobile robots in warehouses were a really hot subject. Those little kind of pucks or bugs running around with boxes or crates on their backs. But it's now become a commodity. There's loads of vendors, and they're differentiated. And again, the robotic arms, once upon a time, there was a triopoly of, Fanuc, KUKA, and ABB. The joke was, which color do you like? Red, orange, or blue? I think I don't remember which one was which. But now loads and loads of other robotic arm suppliers are credible competitors. So we're looking to see how humanoid space evolves, both in terms of its value and in terms of competitive environment. But for now, we're sitting on the sidelines and looking how the industry will play out.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, one thing though that was very obvious is how these machines are just taking huge strides. No pun intended. Huge strides forward. The quadrupedal unitary robot dogs, for example, are just incredibly versatile. Very long battery lives now, and there are literally thousands of them already deployed in different industrial applications around the world, often for kind of monitoring and security. And they have a lot of different sensing equipment on them. There's a lot of data processing at the edge that happens on these devices, and so they're now really, really capable. We are exposed to this space, obviously, through some of our companies that supply equipment into the robotics industry, like Allegro Microsystems, that does position sensing for kind of robot arms and robot joints, or Basler, the German machine vision company, because a lot of these devices are still using and will continue to use more and more machine vision devices. But the use cases are expanding. We own shares in Bentley Systems, which is an engineering and design software company, and they're using robot dogs and other devices like that to do internal scanning of buildings to create digital twins. And there was a lot of that talk.
Yeah, I think I remember we had a meeting with their CEO who said that the promise of digital twins is going to be realized when you get a connection from between the digital twin and the real life object. And to do that, you need to continuously scan the real life object through some kind of robotic means. So is the digital twins finally becoming mainstream? Has that moment been reached?
I think that's true. Yes, I think it has. And particularly when you see it from the kind of device level. So it's not only something that happens at the sort of broader facility or installation level, but companies like Bosch, for example, they say sort of 400 million different digital twins out in the wild already. So, but those are linked to individual machines or devices. So, they're not digital twins as a lot of people would see them, but they certainly link into the broader kind of digital twin software. And there's a lot more interest in these things because they can generate high returns on investment. There's a lot of process optimization, energy saving, monitoring for predictive maintenance that can be done using these software products. In fact, one of the engineers I spoke to said that when they try to sell a digital twin, the customers sort of see it as a bit of a shiny new thing that maybe they don't need. So they've started just talking about that return on investment idea and just offering, just showing how much money the companies can save, particularly in energy costs from putting this software in place.
Yeah, I mean the focus on flexibility and efficiency in manufacturing is ultimately what should drive the demand for those things. I mean the companies are needing to become more agile and responsive to changes in their customer needs, and we're seeing how this kind of feeds back to the design stage of the product. So you have this infinity loop chart that some of our companies show, where the performance of the product in the field, captured through the digital twin, feeds back to the product design. There's an entire category of software, PLM, a product lifecycle management, that speaks to that. One of our companies, PTC, is a global leader in this PLM software, to kind of help iterate faster, reflect customer preferences and product performance in the field faster in designing the new versions or augmenting it to fix the bugs. I guess the ultimate response to this mass customization at scale is additive manufacturing of 3D printing, which we've been waiting to happen for a long time. It's another one of those high reality curves we're tracking. How's that progressing?
Yeah, there was a lot of 3D printing, and it's definitely growing as a portion of the show and becoming more mainstream, no doubt about that. And that's partly to do with the quality of the materials now that they're using, so much more durable, harder materials. So they're able to replace a much wider range of products than was the case before. That we're using typically sort of traditional casting and forging. And what really stands out is the level of complexity and detail that's possible to produce with these techniques. I don't know if we talked about it, but when I went to the defense show last year, we met a company called Renishaw that is using these additive manufacturing techniques to build very complex heat exchangers and even gas turbine engines. And there were more of those kind of things at this show. So definitely coming of age, or I would say come of age, really. And your comment on personalization was also something that was important and prevalent, I think, in the way that companies are trying to move, not just in the way that they're designing their production processes, but also in product terms directly. In fact, there was a great display from Siemens, which got a lot of attention, where they were asking people to come forward and have their feet scanned, and then they would print a personalized pair of shoe soles to fit your feet, all happening right there in front of you, and kind of fit it to a pair of shoes. And a lot of the Siemens team were wearing these printed shoes. So it's it is becoming a reality.
Yeah, I signed up to run a marathon later this month, so probably need all the help I can get given how my training is going. Get one of those. The other thing about flexibility that we've picked up as an idea in the previous events is the kind of the broad subject of software-defined automation, and making production lines more flexible and agile and kind of easy to realign through software means. It was still a concept with relatively little practical implication a year or 2 years ago. Is there any progress along that front?
Definitely, it's definitely an area that companies are devoting a lot of R&D spending to, and focus on, and it makes a lot of sense. I listened to a fascinating presentation actually about the combination of autonomous machines and self-planning products. So almost the self-assembling production line. And here you have agentic AI playing a very big role in terms of linking the right materials and equipment to the desired product outcome, and then creating an efficient automated manufacturing process. And these things literally are self-assembling. So the process, they need some standardized and discrete software. And one version is called an asset administration shell. And this is the kind of link between the hardware and the software. And as I say, all agentically controlled, but fascinating, modular, and really starting to happen now.
Like a Henry Ford conveyor belt 2.0, but with robots rather than humans designing and putting it together. All this innovation kind of expands the digital perimeter of a factory. And with expanding digital perimeter comes the expanding threat perimeter, more things to hack, more things to break. What's the kind of cybersecurity environment like in the industrial world?
Yeah, the cyber is a topic that's talked about everywhere, and there were a lot of companies kind of displaying their wares in terms of cyber offering. I actually caught up with one of our investee companies, Reply, who have a dedicated segment of their business to cyber. And they mentioned that obviously there is this huge growing need for the reasons you mentioned, but also there is a growing regulatory burden, particularly in European companies. So the EU is putting much more pressure on companies to meet higher standards of cybersecurity and product monitoring. And again, that kind of brings us back to the whole defense issue, we talk about frequently. So cyber is playing a huge role in terms of defense. And obviously our Booz Allen Hamilton is the play there, but becoming a very significant problem and a lot of money being spent. I know we've run out of time. There's a lot more things we could talk about, but
well, it's always very exciting to see the leading edge of where the industrial technology is going. So thanks for all that, and we'll no doubt come back to some of these topics over the next Insights calls, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time.